live service game, but it is not a live service money printer. So we need to kill it.
Let's switch to this story here. Do you want to switch to the next news story?
Yeah, sure. Because we can kind of go into that with the point that we're going to make out of this, I'm sure.
Whew. Yeah.
Go on.
So, U.S. PlayStation and Xbox playtime revolves around live service games. More than 40% are spent on 10 live service games. What are these games?
It didn't say in the article, but I'm sure I could guess. All right, so my guess would be Call of Duty, Fortnite, Apex, Genshin, GTA. So that's 5.
All right.
NBA 2K and Madden.
Destiny.
No, I don't think Destiny. I think Destiny has the play count.
Destiny has a surprisingly huge player base. I think it's probably in there.
I don't know. If I like project the Steam numbers onto other platforms, I'm like, I don't think it fits. I would guess that. So yeah, like then I would say Marvel Rivals currently. That's definitely on there currently. The last two spots are kind of tricky. I want to say another Hoyo.
Of course. Yes.
I want to say another Hoyoverse game.
Zenless.
I was gonna say Honkai, but you know,
yeah, I don't know the numbers on those. Obviously, Genshin's huge, but
you know. But yeah, no, man, it's Rocket League, Roblox, Rocket League and Roblox.
Yeah.
Roblox,
those would be pretty high up there. Rocket League still kicking. Good for them.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm gonna put Roblox way higher on that list too, because I forgot about the fact that the Roblox One Piece game has 2 million concurrent players like recently.
Holy shit!
Like that was not like a special event or anything. It just happened one day.
Cool. God, amazing.
Oh yeah. Okay. Hold on. These the Pescatella, the person who wrote this, said the games Call of Duty, Fortnite, GTA, NBA, Marvel, Roblox, Minecraft, Madden, and then college football and Apex.
Oh.
So
college football. Hell yeah.
Yeah, that was the best selling game of last year.
It's the best sports game, despite what some awards will tell you.
Yes.
Man,
yes, it was.
I gotta say, the insane performance of Roblox and its popularity with children really makes me want to like fish out of water that game with a group of people. Like I want to get you guys together at one point and fucking load up Dragon Blocks Fruit, the 2 million concurrent Roblox player game, and just see what the fuck that is.
That'd be a fun video.
I did that with Fortnite. Like I went into Fortnite last year for the first time, like because I'd never tried it. I never somebody was for me. And I felt so goddamn overwhelmed.
It definitely feels overwhelming. But then I dome a guy from really far away, and I'm like, I get it. Oh, I get it.
No. See, it wasn't that. Like, it wasn't the core gameplay. Like, the gameplay was great. I actually really enjoyed playing the game. It's like the menus and the store feels like I'm having a panic attack. It legit.
They're the company that got sued for dark patterns. Are they not?
Yeah, like it fucking like the entire time. I feel like I'm just like having a fucking panic attack. You know, like that. Just there's so much shit everywhere, and every time I click on something, it leads me to buy something. And I'm just trying to understand.
It's hard to parse how to start a game.
Yes. And I'm like trying to figure out, okay, I want Solid Snake. How do I unlock Solid Snake? And like I had to dig through multiple menus, and I kind of came to the conclusion, it's like, okay, so I have to hit level 70 in the battle pass to unlock Solid Snake, or I can just pay $70 now.
Yeah, I just, the experience of jumping off of a ledge turning 360 and shooting a guy with a shotgun, and then he dies, and then I, Vegeta, hit the gritty and transform into Super Saiyan, is just so silly
It
that
is.
I have a good time anyways.
Sure. Yeah. Well, so okay. So on this story, live service dominance, 10 live service dominance. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, for me, it's expected. I think that the market is video games have been cursed with the choking that is the live service game for a while now, and I think this is indicative of the level of grasp it has over people. The fact of the matter is that the people who play video games, uh, more of them play live service games than before, to such an extent that when you release a game, it feels like the market for that game might actually be smaller than it was previously, on account of, while the market as a whole has grown, so many more of those people have had their attention drawn by live service games, that when you do try and release a game, you're actually addressing a smaller reachable audience on account of their available attention span.
I think a lot. I think a lot of it's due also to the social experience. Like if a lot of people like playing games socially with their friends, especially more casual gamers. And it's real easy to be like, "Yo, everybody in the Discord, let's go play some Marvel Rivals.
Yep.
Let's go play some Call of Duty, Fortnite." Versus like playing, I don't know, like Dragon's Dogma 2. It's like it's a very isolated experience. It's I am by myself. It's something that requires a lot of thought. Like I think that's a big part of the difference there. Especially for the more casual gamer. Like there are people who just like, I play games with friends, I do it casually, and for that purpose, Fortnite is perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've played
Yeah.
Fortnite alone without like anyone talking to me about it maybe 3 times, and it's a lot less fun. So like, it's a lot of these things are enhanced by the casual experience. And if I take for example, my brother, he's a big Destiny 2 guy, right? And he
Mhm.
like only plays that game. And so if I want to talk to him, I've got to be playing Destiny 2 for us to like begin talking to each other about something, because that's what he's doing
Yes,
and that's where he is. So if I want to see him, that's where he is.
I have friends who legitimately like in my WoW guild who they will literally only play World of Warcraft.
Yeah.
That is it. They will play World of Warcraft, and then they will play the other versions of World of Warcraft, and maybe you can get them into a new Diablo, but they mostly just play World of Warcraft, and then that's what they play. That's what they're into. I
I
wish I could
I
be
feel
one of
like it
those
runs in my
people.
family now that I think about it, because you say that and you remind me, my dad only plays Diablo or Halo.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. Halo is one of those, like, that's going to be one of those for when our generation starts going into old folks' homes. That's going to be a constant presence.
Back in my day, we had System Link on Blood
Uh,
Punch.
Yeah. I'm looking forward. I'm in this interesting situation where, as long as I don't fuck it up, I've got, like, I don't know, 2 or 3 years until the new Skate live service game comes out, and I'm going to be gone in that too. And I get this moment beforehand of knowing that that's going to happen to me, and I'm just waiting.
so in my case, like I realized I was in the live service pit, and I've been trying to make an effort to leave it to go play single player games
Mm-hmm.
more often. That's been kind of a goal of mine this year. Marvel Rivals has really been the only live service game I've played all year. And even then, I'm trying to, it currently, especially because of the review I'm working on, like I'm trying to be more mindful and being playing Yakuza and playing Chimera Blade. Because as much as I really do enjoy my time in live service games, a lot of it feels like I didn't get anything out of it, especially if I'm playing by myself.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I play, like I said it before, I look back at my get my most played games on Steam last year, and Destiny 2 was number 1. And I thought about it, I'm like, I honestly don't remember anything I did besides playing the raids.
Right.
Yep.
Yep.
Hey, Same though, and my first playthrough of the campaigns. But
That
I'm
too.
just
That too.
invested like that.
Um,
Yeah, I try as like a matter of gamer health for my gamer health. I try to play an indie game that is unique in some way every week or two. Like my most recent one, I played Hollow Cure, and
mm,
damn, that's like the best Vampire Survivors game out there.
Hmm.
I was
Nice.
surprised
Huh.
for a free game.
um,
Oh,
Right. It's funny. I lost a good chunk of my time to a live service single player game last year,
oh,
which was weird.
ZZZ,
That's good old
the
ZZZ.
ZZZ.
And that was a game that was like more than any other game was like, we want you to keep playing this, but not in a like because the game's super fun way, but it's because we have an engaging multiple systems to keep
Because
you
you
always
need to.
striving for something. And like that's great, but the way you've laid it out is just like this is an attention hogging machine more than anything else. It's not like I need to get this stuff. Like in Monster Hunter, I want to get cool armor, you know? Like number go up, that's great, but I want to get cool armor. Like that's cool. And then Zenless Zone Zero is like the number needs to go up. This number right here needs to go up more. I can do this.
Yeah, and like
You need
it's
to do
very
things 10
trans.
times to make it go up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's very transparent. Like what like Warcraft, it's like I want to go do the thing to make number go up and get cool armor so I can hit harder.
Right.
I can do better at the game in the competitive and co-op sense. You know, like yeah. I think the only live service games I'm not currently a little grossed out by is like Street Fighter and fighting games in general, because those games like you can kind of ignore the entire live service aspect in just favor of the competition and improvement.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I also think it helps that it, unlike playing Marvel Rivals, which at times can be a very toxic experience.
Yeah.
Cool boy, some of the conversations I've had in ranked matches,
Ooh.
let me tell you.
Ooh.
Just just getting some League of Legends flashbacks.
Right. Yep. Ugh.
So yeah, I think it's important for people who play video games to go look at single player experiences or co-op experiences that are not linked to this stuff, which I think the co-op experiences is even harder. You know, we played 4 hours of Monster Hunter on Friday night, the three of us and Anthony, and that's live service. Yeah, yeah, we. It's very good to know that no matter who finishes the story last, all of us can go help them by sitting in a lobby and waiting until they get to the cutscene and fight the monster, and then we can all just warp in.
That is how the game
Yeah.
works.
Yep. We'll get
but
there.
yeah, like, but you know, 40. You look at this, you're like 40% of all playtime, and then you're like the money printer that is.
Yeah.
You know, like yeah, it makes sense because you know I think about the amount of money I have not spent much money on Marvel Rivals. I've spent a total of $5 battle pass, $10 battle pass, $16 Wolverine skin pack,
Mm-hmm.
31 bucks, and I've gotten 216 hours of gameplay.
Right.
But provided that this game doesn't go down the Overwatch route, I know I'm going to buy new skins. I know I'm going to buy the next battle pass. So they have effectively, as long as the game continues to be good and fun, have a money printer.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and this game made $2.9 billion in its first 2.5 months of existence.
Yep.
2 months and a week of existence. It's fucking
crazy.
crazy.
Well,
You know?
no, it's not free. It's expensive money, but more than you paid.
It's when you get a really good live service multiplayer and it's popular, people are looking for social experiences in games. They want to jump in games with friends and have good times with friends, and that's kind of what it's about for the consumer end. Those top 10 live service they're just safe bets.
Well, they're safe bets. The problem is I was talking about with this Anthony earlier this week, where it's like, unless you are making a game that is not being served by, like, if you're making a live service game in a genre that does not exist or is underserved, or you are just flat out better in every way than the competition, then making a live service game is a death march.
Right.
Like that.
Yeah.
That's the problem. Is
Yes.
like it's like the reason why Marvel Rivals succeeded is people were really pissed off at Overwatch, and then Marvel Rivals comes along and it looks better, it plays better, it has more interesting characters that a lot of people have a lot of love for because it's Marvel Comics.
Yep.
Like it just they said we did the Overwatch but better, and our monetization model isn't gross and predatory, so people moved. So you either need to make a better game or you need to just go to an underserved market, which I think for live service almost every market is met.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It makes me very worried for the skate live service game because skateboarding is a genre unto itself, and there aren't many games there. But also, the skateboarding market is not huge. It's not gonna exponentially grow. It's not going to come close to cracking the top 10 live service games, except for like maybe its first month it'll hit 10.
Yeah, that game's gonna come out and it's gonna say, all right, your daily is to do 10 ollies, and
it'll be better than that, but yeah. There will be dailies, there will be weeklies, there will be all that stuff. That's fine, but like there's a cap on that audience,
15,
man. And so I'm telling EA, like, you're not going to get exponential profits, man. You're not going to do it with this. You're going to get a dedicated group of people who are going to play this game until they fucking die or until you shut it down.
Yeah, but what if it hits?
Well, yeah, they need to make sure it's good. They got an ongoing beta, but I still haven't gotten an invite to.
We don't have time to make sure it's good. Release it now.
They haven't done that yet, so I don't know.
So, on that note, I think a live service skateboarding game could work, but it would have to be Tony Hawk. I think you'd have to make because it has to appeal to the normies.
Yeah.
Which I don't think Skate does as much. So you would have to make an arcade skateboarding game like Tony Hawk and add a bunch of microtransaction bullshit to it and maybe some Burnout Paradise co-op style stuff. And I think that's how that would work in my mind, at least.
American Wasteland, Proving Ground, open world.
Yes.
And
yep.
Constantly be adding skaters. That'd be a good way to get people into the skate scene to play.
Man, I don't remember a single thing about American Wasteland despite having played it. Like, I can't tell you the first thing about that game.
I remember it was
a 360 launch title.
It was a 360 one, yes.
Fog City.
I played it because I loved Tony Hawk's Underground and Tony Hawk's Underground 2.
Good games.
I was way into those two games. Didn't play any of the Pro Skater games. Didn't even know they existed. And then American Wasteland comes out, and me and my dad are hype as hell for it. And then I played it and I didn't care.
It was fine. It was their first attempt at an open world. They were like, no loading screens, which wasn't entirely true as far as I recall. But then it was just like
I remember them
fog.
saying it was open world, and then having the concept described to me because of that game, because I hadn't heard of it before, and it's like, oh, like there's going to be no barriers. And then like the first thing I did was walk really far in one direction and hit a barrier.
There's going to be a barrier, right?
You fucking lied to me, you monsters.
So Tony Hawk has the kind of name pull that Skate will never have. I think Skate, especially if you're a skateboarding fan and you've played Session and Skater XL, to call Skate a sim game is laughable, but it is not the arcade of Tony Hawk. You're right.
It's in the same way that Forza Motorsport is a sim game. Or Forza Horizon.
I would say Skate is the Forza Horizon of skateboarding games.
It's like spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
It's more realistic.
Yes,
but it's not quite. It's not Gran Turismo, and it's not the big boy simulators either.
Right.
So it's one of those things where I think that you'd have to do Tony Hawk, and I think you would have to do Tony Hawk and also make it kind of busted to where you could get insane viral videos out of it. because I
mean,
think
yeah.
part of why like I think that like why part of why Marvel Rivals took off is like my TikTok feed was filled with just the most insane shit
Yep.
people were doing in Marvel Rivals. Like here's this Doctor Strange portal tech.
Yeah.
Here's this I like just and you just see people just using the portals to create goddamn Looney Tunes moments. And you're like that's hilarious. I want to play that.
I mean, imagine a
Uh,
live service multiplayer where you're doing the best trick in each zone and you're claiming that spot, and it's like 4v4, and you got 2 minutes. That'd be sick.
I'm gonna
Mhm.
say, okay. I'm gonna get hot takey here.
All
I
right.
hard
Uh,
disagree with that statement.
Okay.
what?
I hate the idea of including live service anywhere that it could be not included. I think it fundamentally poisons the funness of a game. I think being a live service is near antithetical to having a good time because you have to be in an environment with other people with reasonable balanced scales for performance and comparative performance to other people. So you are forced to exist in a sort of realm of like mediocrity because you can't have the gap between people be too huge and you're in a multiplayer environment, like kind of no matter
Mm,
what kind of live service game you have, you're effectively in a slightly multiplayer environment, so you can't
mm,
ridiculously break any curve of any kind when it comes to gameplay progression or challenge, which means you can't easy stomp something that is supposed to be difficult, and you can't be completely blown away by something that is supposed to be easy. You are forced to stay within a middling range of
mm.
participation, which means the crazy shit that you can do in something like Tony Hawk's, where you can get these wild fucking score combos, they need to make that not possible to create a competitive environment at all.
See, I think for Tony Hawk specifically, of all franchises, I think Tony Hawk, like getting crazy combos, is core to the experience of Tony Hawk. I think they would be willing to break it in that specific instance because that's a
I,
core part of it. That's how you get your TikToks.
I think that any designer can do anything, and therefore you can obviously make a live service game that doesn't get poisoned by this aspect of the live service game.
Hmm.
But I think that you're kind of going to be stuck to the treadmill of personal performance because of the fact that they, on account of it being a live service, are creating a near uniform experience for most players. You're going to be within a certain degree of power. You're going to be within a certain degree of performance experience at really any point in the game. My big examples that I've experienced are obviously things like Destiny, where like you can't be particularly overpowered in Destiny. It's not possible. Because if you could, then you would be advantaged over other people who aren't that overpowered because of your specific build setup, which means your build can only have a certain degree of effect on how much better or worse you are than any other person. And that's deeply dissatisfying. And I think that when you are put into those multiplayer environments, that you run into a lot of situations in which you are stuck in this middle ground where you're always with people that are roughly your skill level uh, at almost everything you're doing. And so you're never doing super, super good or super, super bad. You're doing like the same as everybody else
So
if the game wants to keep up a reasonable competitive environment.
I don't think that's necessarily true. You just have to allow for like good skill expression because like I'm going to use the fighting game community as an example. Those are all live service games at their core now, like 100%.
Yeah,
And it does not matter how many times I go fight Punk or Knuckle Do. They are going to beat me probably 99 times out of 100 if they're
right.
going full tilt. Like, so, and their skill expression is like way higher. They can do shit that I could never do ever unless I practiced as much as they do. You know, and I think that you can just do that by allowing skill expression. It doesn't have to be like a
Yeah, but
hard
you're not
number
going to be
thing.
matched up against them. Like you're going to be matched up against a guy in your tier that is going to be of roughly comparable strength to you because it wants to keep up an environment where there's a roughly 50-50 win rate.
If you're in ranked.
If you're in ranked, like go play quick play, where I will run into grandmasters and just get stomped on, or I'll also run into bronze people where I crush their spirit and make them never want to play against Akuma again.
But to your point, Duncan, like fighting games, I think are unique in that they kind of need that.
I do think they're unique.
That's their own thing. Duncan, can you give us some examples of what you're thinking of when you are making this point?
Like Beyond Destiny, like do you have another example?
I think the game we just played, Monster Hunter Wilds, I feel as though the game is constrained to a certain degree of relative available gear and available strength comparative to the progression of the game at any given time. There's no breaking that curve. There's nothing that you can do to be particularly ahead of it because the game wants to keep you on the specific live service path of getting to this point in progression. And then as you're going through new content releases, everyone is going to be kept at a rough parallel because they need to have a degree of normalcy to be able to control player experience. When they're releasing a piece of new content, they need to have an understanding of where the common player is, which means live service games incentivize them to create a degree of flat experience between different players.
So but then but the thing is, you can still have the experience, I imagine, because I'm not far enough. I'm almost at the halfway mark of the campaign, from what I understand. Is if I am like fully kitted out in full, high hunter rank armor and weapons that have been fully upgraded, and I go help my friend fight Ray Dow, am I not going to go completely help them smoke Ray Dow?
You're not making meaningful progress or like actually contributing to your own like your own experience of the live service game by essentially pub stomping. That's like picking any other picking any competitive game and hopping onto a Smurf account and blowing bronzes out because you're like, well, I could massively vary the skill expression by matching myself up in a lobby of people that are way worse than me. It's if you purposely go out of your way to not engage with the intended player experience, then absolutely you can have those different experiences. But I think that the nature of making things that even aren't originally specifically designed around competitive multiplayer, but forcing them into an environment where they have a sense of community progress and community experience results in an incentivization to normalize player experience and player condition such that the new content you release can have an expected form of reception every single time you make new content.
Okay.
That's something I have to sit and think on. It's something I can't quite properly respond to in the moment.
I know I'm saying a lot, but it's basically the idea is in any competitive game, you want the 50-50 matchup so that you can know that players of roughly the same skill level are having the same experience of winning the same amount of time because you want to normalize that. You want people to hit where they're supposed to be, and then you want to make that 50-50 experience fun. That's the goal for like a fighting game, right? That is kind of true of all competitive games. And when you make a game a live service game, you transfer that game from what is normally just a single player experience to now a community oriented experience that has single player instances. So if you are at the end game of something like Zenless Zone Zero, they're going to try and normalize your content experience so that they can understand your experience when you receive the game across the board for all players. It's the thing that I take umbrance with when it comes to making a game live service that is not initially a live service game, something like a skate, is that it is now creating an environment where they're going to be excessively normalizing player experiences in the same way that you have to do for a competitive environment for a non-competitive environment.
So I think that even then, though, you can have high levels of skill expression, though. Like, if I'm going to use,
It's not that you can't have high levels of skill expression, though, but it's that the game development is going to be made in mind to minimize the level of personal cathartic player expression as to allow a sort of common level of that expression. Because if there's a degree of comparison going on at all, then that takes something that would have been amazing if it was solo and didn't have a basis for comparison that you're forced to engage with, and makes it no longer so. So if you competitivify a Tony Hawk, then that incredibly high combo that you were like, oh, that felt amazing, you get put into a ranking system where it turns out you're like not even doing that great and you're actually bad at it. It's a common experience people go through when they enter speedrunning, for example, where they make a game that is initially completely solo, effectively competitive, and it turns out that they suck, and that mode of gameplay can be unfun if you are failing at it by comparison to your peers. And
oh, God, this is where I have competitive brain, where that is not my like mindset and experience. So it's really hard for me to project this outward.
I mean, the way it
Like to have
sounds,
this thought.
it sounds like a filter for if you're into being competitive or you're open to the idea of being competitive, entering that kind of headspace is wonderful. Whereas if you're not, then okay, like that. I don't know if that turns
exactly
people
what I
away
mean.
from the game, but it turns them away from the competitive aspect.
I'll say some games can separate these things very effectively, right? I think many games in the process of their development will run into issues where they realize that something that they want to include in the experience is going to cause issues in the balance of a competitive environment, and they then need to change it. This is endemic in Destiny, where a lot of things that are incredibly fun to do in single player cannot exist because you're doing it with other people, so they can't put it in the game because it would be great and it'd be an awesome time and it would have been super good feeling, but we have to think about the actual player environment. And when you include that, it's going to influence your development decisions. So if you are essentially tacking on a comparative environment between players, then you're going to inevitably influence your development decisions in mind with that level of balance for the experience of your competitive, which in my experience, I think makes most of the games worse single player experiences than they would have been otherwise.
They're not designed around being single player experiences, though. That's another thing to consider when you're
Right,
making a
which is
live
why I bring this
service.
specifically up in the context of games that are traditionally single player experiences that are then turned
Okay,
into live service community style games.
right, and I think that it's so hard for me because I do feel like Tony Hawk always did have a level of competition to it, even if it
Yeah,
was
yeah,
just either
it's certainly
yeah,
been present between some people when they get
yeah,
together and they specifically engage in that, but there was never a structured environment for it, and the game was never
no,
developed in mind with the balance of that environment. That environment instead came naturally from the fun of the game and people trying to compare their level of skill expression in that system. That is
mm,
perfectly fine because it never develops the decisions that the developers are making uh in the process of making that game. A natural community of competition in an environment that
mhm,
wasn't balanced with competition in mind will certainly run into their own problems, but I think it's great because it means that that game sort of keeps the integrity of its original intent present. An example I would give is that Evo, for a number of years, I don't know if they still do it, had a competitive Catherine scene. And
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a side tournament now, but yes, that still
and
exists.
Catherine basically has a tacked on two-player mode. Like it's clearly a last minute development. Like, oh, you could theoretically do that, and the game's not intended for it, like at all. And
Mm,
games that are like that fundamentally maintain the integrity of their single player experiences without negatively affecting the experience for someone who isn't interested in the competitive multiplayer. But games like Destiny that have a built-in, ingrained, and excessively balanced multiplayer environment need to make concessions for their single player experiences for the sake of the balance and therefore fun and engageability of their competitive environments. And I think that most games that have those things in from the start will make concessions for their single player experience in the degree of catharsis and fun that you are able to achieve in service of the catharsis and fun that you're able to achieve in that competitive environment. And there's absolutely room for tons of skill expression in between players in that competitive environment, but it negatively affects a lot of the parts of the experience for the rest of the game having a competitive nature to the game.
I see.
Oh,
Yeah.
I see. All right. Well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That is my long and prolonged hot take.
I think that's very interesting.
Inflammatorily described as live service makes every game worse.
Yes. Well, you know, yeah. Go ahead, Bronson.
I never thought of it that way. That's actually fascinating, and part of that's just because I have competition brain. So, like in the Tony Hawk example, my brain instantly goes to, "Oh fuck! I guess I need to get good." All right, let's go. Well, time to go on the internet and find out how to get good at Tony Hawk.
Yeah,
and this is,
it's like when you play Elden Ring, and then you get invaded, and you find out, oh, I actually fucking suck at this game. You felt great because you were like crushing bosses, but as it turns out, you're actually supposed to beat the bosses in Elden Ring. The game wants you to be able to do that. So when you do that, you're not like particularly better than other people. Everyone who's beaten Elden Ring has beaten the bosses. You get into a PvP environment and you get taught quickly that these people know more about the game and are better than you at it.
I guess I'm not concerned as much about that aspect of it. Like
I'm not as concerned about that at all. It's just it's an experience that you can sometimes be forced to have when you don't intend to.
I see. Okay. Well, unfortunately, we do need to move on. We have other news stories to get to, but hey,
we gotta get to this shit.
You people, you should comment your thoughts on this. We would love to hear from you on all that. So,
and and subscribe.
yes, absolutely. Share, 5-star reviews, all that fun stuff. Absolutely. But yes, we'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Just hear some different opinions. But yeah, live service games, man. Jesus, they continue to reign supreme. But we have another thing that we got to get around to.